Justin Smith, our man about Melbourne, broadcaster, author, will join us from there. On the desk here with me is Danica DeGiorgio, Sky News host. They're about ready to wrangle.
Woo.
Let's wrangle over the economy. Inflation up again. Justin, Albo and Chalmers have got no idea.
Well, I mean, it's the government's job to take responsibility for it, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure, as we've said many times, if the inflation figures were wonderful, they'd be screaming it from that flag that sits atop of Parliament House. But it just ain't. So that's their job. It's the gig.
Jimbo, of course, always tells us that he's doing a great job. Here's what he's planning to do next.
We are looking for additional savings beyond the $114 billion that we've saved already. And one of the motivations for that is to make sure that we're playing a helpful role in the fight against inflation.
Tanika, we've been through this before. He calls it $114 billion of saving. That's money he just shifted elsewhere, and then they spent more. They've saved none. They've just increased spending.
Yeah, you know, what's the definition of insanity, Chris? You know, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping that you get the same outcome. Jim, every economist in the country has warned you that you're, like Wednesdays, every economist in the country has warned you that, you know, your spending is out of control. The RBA has warned, and he's still doing the same thing. We knew that this was going to happen, Chris. We knew that inflation was going to rise. Labor decided to dish out subsidies, thinking, here is your Band-Aid solution. It was a wonderful way to trick the RBA into thinking that they had got a hold on the economy. We knew once those subsidies petered out that the inflation was going to go up. And Jim is spending us into oblivion right now and in complete denial about it.
I couldn't believe the nonsense of this. I called this out the day of the budget, the day before the budget, that this is a trick that won't work. It pretends that inflation goes away, but it's going to come back. Obviously, it's happening. It's just so obvious, Justin, that this spending has been the problem. We all know that we spent too much during the pandemic, and that was going to be inflationary. And the only way to fix that was to curb your government spending. Instead, Labor's just kept increasing it.
Yeah, but to come into the cabinet room and sort of bang the fist and say, right, we're gonna cut spending, you know, as though what is like the old Simpsons gag when Homer Simpson says, work harder, and it makes him a good boss. You know, just to say, we're going to cut spending. We've really got to see, I'm all for cutting spending, but we've got to see the detail. Where are those costs coming from? I mean, are they taking it from they won't be taking it from their own pocket. There'll be no politician that will be worse off when they cut spending. So where the hell does it come from?
Well, I think they've also got to look at the public service.
That's a really important question.
Well, they have to.
They've got to look at the public service. It's the most inflated public service that Labor has ever seen.
Who would
if you want to start making some...
Who goes?
There's got to be some departments. There's got to be some departments that have to go. You've got to...
Which ones?
Well, the 40,000 they've added since they came into power, they've obviously not helped at all. And perhaps all those who are just working from home, because if you can't turn up and do your job, honestly, it's a shocker. Here's Tim Wilson, now the Shadow Treasurer.
We've had Pyro Jim Chalmers out there pouring debt petrol on the inflation fire, and it's catching up with the government as their excuses no longer hold. The Prime Minister is now coming and overriding the Treasurer and saying, mate, you're causing this problem. Your job is now to stop it.
Yeah, we'll see. Good luck to them. They need to curb spending, but they've showed no sign of it. We'll see what happens. Let's go to Victoria and get your thoughts, Justin, on this story in the Herald Sun today that the Premier there, Jacinda Allen, has actually known about the prospect of returning Islamic State families or ISIS brides and their kids since September last year.
Yeah. Look, but nobody's being upfront on this. So the state governments aren't being upfront. We're not getting the detail. But my bigger concern is them actually getting into the country and how that works, because there may be some of them, and we just don't know this, there may be some of them that would be almost genuine refugees and victims of what has happened that may be allowed to come in. But you've got the governments, I mean, we just don't know that. I'm not saying there are, I'm not saying there aren't. We don't know that yet, because what is missing is we have the minister on the weekend saying, oh, we don't want them here. You know, we don't want them coming here. OK, well, if that's the case, give us the detail on why and then tell us why you can't, because you managed to keep one of them out for security reasons. So if you want to keep them all out for security reasons, then surely you're able to do it. I've got to say, this is confusing as hell. I'd be flat out finding a person who really understands this.
Yeah.
That's not in our security services. We're just not getting the detail.
Well, the minister over the weekend, his exact wording was, "We know these people," and then he went on to say that this is not a very coherent cohort. Now, if we are basing our national security on whether or not a person is coherent or not, then we seriously have got big problems, Chris. And I agree. I think this is a scandal. These ministers knew about it. Labor federally knew for months that these women were going to come back, and they've sat on it, and now suddenly they're going, no, we're trying to keep arm's length away from it.
There's not much honesty here. They've been very secretive about this, and it needs to be exposed. Just very quickly, let's look at the Sky News Pulse polling, and that shows us, of course, that we have a similarity in primary votes between the major parties. Now, obviously, the Coalition and One Nation are duking it out in the low to mid-20s, but Labor have come down to 29%. I think this is fascinating. I think as we get closer to the election, maybe it becomes a bit more polarised, but at the moment, that is a bloody shambles. And we're running out of time to talk about it. Thanks for joining us, Justin and
Thank
Tanika.
you.
We'll catch up with you next week.